Marcus Chen had been driving long-haul trucks for 23 years, crossing the empty highways of the American West in the deep hours when the world belonged only to him and the endless road. He had seen sunrises over the Rockies, dust storms in Arizona, and more shooting stars than he could count. He thought he knew every secret the night could hold. But on a cold November evening in 1987, driving across the Nevada desert, Marcus discovered that some things in the night sky don't just watch, they follow. It was 3:17 a.m. when his radio began to malfunction. Marcus had been listening to a late-night talk show, the host's voice keeping him company through the lonely darkness, when the signal started to distort. Static crept in, but not the usual kind. This was rhythmic, pulsing like a heartbeat transmitted through electronic waves. He reached to change the station, but every frequency carried the same sound. AM, FM, even the CB radio, all of them pulsed with that strange, organic rhythm. Then his headlights caught something in the rearview mirror that made his breath catch in his throat. 3 lights hung in the sky behind him, perfectly positioned in a triangular formation. Amber-coloured, neither bright nor dim, they maintained an exact distance from each other and from his truck. Marcus had seen planes before, helicopters, even military aircraft in this part of Nevada. These were none of those things. They moved with a fluidity that defied physics, adjusting their position to match every turn of his truck with impossible precision. His first instinct was to speed up. Marcus pressed the accelerator, and his 18-wheeler surged forward, pushing 70, then 80 miles per hour on the empty desert highway. The lights kept perfect pace, not catching up, not falling behind, but maintaining the exact same distance as if tethered to his truck by invisible strings. For 20 minutes, they followed him across that desolate stretch of highway. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cold air blowing from the vents. He tried his CB radio to call for help, but the only sound was that pulsing rhythm, now faster, more insistent, almost excited. The desert landscape flew past his windows, Joshua trees casting twisted shadows, distant mountains silhouetted against the starlit sky. But Marcus couldn't look away from his mirrors, where those 3 amber lights maintained their perfect formation, patient and purposeful in their pursuit. He considered pulling over, but some primal instinct told him that stopping would be the worst decision he could make. Whatever those lights were, whatever intelligence guided them, they wanted him to stop. They wanted him alone and stationary on this empty highway where no help could reach him for hours. Then, without any warning, they moved. All 3 lights suddenly dropped lower, descending until they were level with his truck. Marcus could see them clearly now in his side mirrors, and what he saw made his stomach turn. They weren't mechanical. There was no metal, no visible structure, just pure light that seemed to bend and distort the air around it. And within each light, he could almost perceive a shape, something organic and writhing, as if the lights were windows into some other place where physics worked differently and things that should not exist moved with terrible purpose. The lights began to close in, tightening their formation. The one on his left drifted closer to his cab, and Marcus could feel heat radiating through the metal of his truck's door. The smell hit him next, ozone and burnt metal, sharp and acrid, filling his cab and making his eyes water. His instruments went haywire. The speedometer needles spun wildly. The fuel gauge dropped to empty and then climbed to full. Warning lights flashed across his dashboard in patterns that seemed almost like Morse code, though spelling out nothing he could understand. Marcus's vision began to blur. The road ahead seemed to stretch and compress, as if space itself was becoming unstable. He blinked hard, trying to focus, and realized with growing horror that he could see through his hands on the steering wheel. His flesh had become translucent, showing the bones beneath, and for a moment he wondered if he was dying, if these lights were some kind of judgment or extraction. Then, as suddenly as they had descended, the lights shot straight up into the sky. The acceleration was impossible, 0 to gone in less than a second, leaving behind 3 trails of disturbed air that glowed faintly in the darkness. The smell lingered, that burnt metal and ozone scent that made Marcus gag and cough. His instrument stabilized. His hands became solid again. The radio crackled back to life with the talk show host mid-sentence, as if nothing had happened. But Marcus knew something had changed fundamentally. He could feel it in his bones, in the way the air tasted, in the strange hollowness that had opened up somewhere behind his breastbone. He drove for another hour before reaching the next town, a small truck stop with a diner that stayed open all night. When he climbed out of his cab, his legs nearly gave out beneath him. He stumbled into the diner and ordered coffee with shaking hands, trying to process what had happened. That's when he looked at his watch and felt ice water flood his veins. The watch had stopped at 3:17 a.m., the exact moment his radio had first malfunctioned, but the clock on the diner wall read 5:47 a.m. He had lost 2 hours somewhere on that desert highway, 2 hours that existed in his memory as 20 minutes of terror. What had happened during that missing time? Had the lights taken him somewhere? Done something to him? The questions spiraled through his mind, unanswerable and terrifying. Over the next few days, Marcus discovered other changes. His watch never worked again, the hands frozen at 3:17 despite multiple attempts to repair it. His truck's odometer showed 237 fewer miles than his logbook accounted for, as if he had travelled backwards through space. And in his cab, that smell would return at random moments, ozone and burnt metal, even weeks later, a reminder that some encounters leave marks deeper than memory. But the worst discovery came when he returned home to his apartment in Sacramento. Marcus had always been a solitary man, comfortable with his reflection, but now he found he couldn't bear to look at mirrors. Every reflective surface, bathroom mirrors, his truck's mirrors, even the dark screen of his television, seemed to show him something that wasn't quite right. His reflection would lag behind his movements by a fraction of a second, or his eyes would seem darker, older, filled with knowledge that no human should possess. Within a month, Marcus had covered every mirror in his apartment with sheets and towels. He sold his truck and took a job at a warehouse, working day shifts where the sun always shone and the sky held no mysteries. He stopped driving at night entirely, wouldn't even get in a car after dark. His friends thought he had developed some kind of phobia, but Marcus never explained. How could he make them understand that every time darkness fell, he could feel those lights up there somewhere, watching and waiting with infinite patience? Years passed, and Marcus built a new life around his fear. He dated a woman who accepted his quirks without question, though she never understood why he insisted their home have blackout curtains and no mirrors. He worked hard, saved money, tried to forget that night on the Nevada highway. But on November nights, when the air turns cold and the stars shine bright, Marcus still feels them. He wakes at 3:17 a.m., always 3:17, with his heart pounding and that smell of ozone filling his nostrils. And sometimes, if he's unlucky enough to glimpse his reflection in an unexpected surface, he sees something looking back at him from behind his eyes. Something that uses his face but isn't quite him. Something that followed him home from that desert highway and never truly left. His doctors call it PTSD, anxiety, sleep disorders. They prescribe medications that Marcus doesn't take because he knows they can't cure what's really wrong. You can't medicate away the feeling that part of you was left somewhere else, or that something else was put in its place. You can't take a pill to forget the knowledge that we are not alone in the universe, and that what shares the cosmos with us might be more interested in us than we ever wanted to be known. Marcus is 62 now, and he still won't drive at night. He still covers his mirrors. And every November, he marks the anniversary of that encounter by staying awake through the entire night, listening to the sounds of the world and wondering if, somewhere out there in the darkness, 3 amber lights are searching for him still, patient and purposeful, waiting for the right moment to finish what they started on that lonely highway so many years ago. Sleep now and dream of endless roads beneath endless skies. But remember that some journeys mark us in ways we can never quite see, and some followers are patient enough to wait a lifetime before claiming what they've been watching all along.